I guess when you're talking about disadvantaged young people in particular, they've got to understand that they can't achieve very much in an education environment if they're dealing with trauma. And a lot of the people who are dealing with trauma aren't dealt with, and until you do that, they're going to be disruptive in classrooms all the time, and you're going to have teachers who can really put up with a lot of abuse at times, I guess, because they're still working through their troubled areas. And we keep saying one of the most important sayings for us is behaviour is language. So teachers need to learn to interpret behaviour, because often kids are acting out, and they're acting out because they can't put into words what they're feeling or what they're dealing with. So teachers need to really become very strongly involved in interpreting their actions. And the other thing we do in our own schools that really works is we provide wraparound services for them. So we'll have teachers ringing our kids up at 7 in the morning to get them up. They'll go and meet them in certain places. They'll find accommodation for them if they need. They become really involved in their life, and that way teachers can become significant to them and have an incredible influence on those kids. So I think if you want to engage troubled kids, you're going to have to really have the right teachers and the right resources, and make sure they have wraparound resources if they need to deal with trauma. If I go into a classroom to teach, I would break down my activities into 15-minute bites. So every 10-15 minutes I would be doing something different, because their attention span is very, very limited. And the other thing I do in particularly teaching HSC English and Year 11 English is make the material relevant to their life. Relationships are really important. The type of activities are really important. And you've got to search for teaching styles. I think if you're talking about industry engaging with disadvantaged kids, our experience again is about you need an employer who is understanding of where these kids are coming from. And if you simply just put kids into a job, as Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard have said, like, wake up, get up and get a job, and if you do, we'll give you a money incentive. If you don't, we're going to take it off you. These kids don't respond to that at all. They haven't been in a work situation, they haven't been in a school situation, and as I said, they're dealing with that trauma. So we find that the only way it works is, one, you have an employer who is willing to be there in the long term with kids. So that's important. And the other thing we provide is we have youth workers attached to those kids, so when the employer is struggling, they're out there and communicating to the employer and helping them understand what's going on in that person's life and giving them support. And it comes down to things like waking kids up, getting them there, and the longer they're there, the more they will go towards independence. But those initial weeks, months are crucial if you want to hold a kid in an employment situation which is so alien to them. And if they don't have that support, employers give up and they'll never try it again, and kids give up because of the bad experience. So it's crucial, if you're working with employers, that they are given the support, given the knowledge and background to some extent, and understand what they're committing to. I discovered TAFE and O10, and in the first year we actually had a teacher come out to us every week and teach those kids. But now, since we have them in Walgett, Griffith, Narrandera, Southwest Sydney, Western Sydney, we have a lot of them, and we tend to do the O10 stuff, and they all come together once a month and go into Strathfield to have a teacher with them all day as well. There has been no fallout of that group, and these are the kids who have changed country towns and suburbs. I'm passionate about pushing these young people, so they lined up for the community service program and then the drug and alcohol program, and they were really quite confident, and I said, no, one program's not enough, so you've got a 2-year traineeship, you've also got to do disability as well. And after your 2 years, when you're qualified, I would really encourage you to go to university or do some further training on. And so I'm saying to these young people, don't get comfortable just that you've got a TAFE certificate, or go and do further stuff. And I actually did last year the Diploma of Aboriginal Studies through O10, which was just the most amazing course I've ever done, to be honest. And the beauty of that is they see you're investing in the community. You're not coming in as an outsider and bring all your resources. I'll go in there, I'll get the trainees, and they become, and we have about 20 of those trainees who are now graduated right across New South Wales. And what they say is the longer you can keep a kid in education, the better outcomes they have for life choices. So we find if we get a kid through year 10, it's not a bad outcome. If you get them through year 12, much better outcome. And if you got them to university, which we don't often do, but if you got them in there, again, that increases. So it's really strong evidence that you can actually have better outcomes by keeping kids in. I will do an HSC English, for example, because my kids are troubled. I would, you probably wouldn't get away with this in TAFE. I'll use an R-rated movie like Sleepers. And do you aware of Sleepers? It's about 3 kids who are put into a juvenile detention centre and who are sexually assaulted by the staff there. When they come out of that jail, out of detention centres, the effect that has is incredible, and they become thugs and murderers and eventually find the guy who sexually assaulted him, killed him. I got a priest to lie for them, this is a true story, and say that he was with the kids at a baseball match or something, and they got off and were dead a few years later. And then I put Good Will Hunting there. And Good Will Hunting is about a troubled kid also who is successful. So I'll then put Robert Frost's poem, the two roads less travelled, and I'll say, okay, this is your normal road where you're overcome by negativity, you've been hurt and abused, and you can end up dead. Or you can be like Good Will Hunting, where you actually deal with your stuff and you lead a successful life. So when you get into discussions like that, with English, HSC English, the theme is relationships. So it leaves you, or belonging, and you know, the greatest need for a human being is to belong. So I tie all the relevant stuff in and use DVDs a lot. You know, I'm not sure how to answer that, except to say I think most young people are keen to do an education, but they need a really flexible model. And I think at the heart of many young people that they know that education is their way out of their cycle of poverty and abuse and so forth. The problem is that when you're really down and you're filled with trauma, and I've really thrown out things like I don't care about ADD or ADHD or opposition. I think the core of our troubled kids is trauma. And we never talk about that. We put labels on them and never deal with that trauma. When you're full of that trauma, you can't learn, and so you need to make sure it's a very safe environment. We feed our kids all the time, you know, make sure that meals are there for them. Our teachers will take them to counselling sessions, and there's 2 teachers or one teacher every 6 kids, but they don't have teachers' aides, it's just them, and they're often crying out to me for more. And I'm saying, well, we can't do more, we keep expanding and getting bigger. So I just think there needs to be a place where they feel really safe, where they know the teachers care about them and will feed them. And I sent the kids over to East Timor, and they came back, 20-year-olds, and they said to me, we know we can make a difference in the world now. And I think if we want to get any message to kids, it is that they can contribute, because there are thousands of kids out there who are overwhelmed by the psychology of hopelessness, and they need to be encouraged. And so when that kid said that, I can make a difference, I said to him and a few others around, would you like to become youth workers, training youth workers? And they jumped at it and said yes.